In repeat criminal news, a convicted prurient offender who had been given probation suffocated a 15-year-old girl that he was dating weeks after he was given the probation relating to the prurient offenses. So, when you are soft on crime, sometimes the criminals reoffend, as is this story. So this guy was convicted of prurient offenses, given probation, and then decided to suffocate a 15-year-old girl he was dating. So that's a thing that happened. Let's learn more about this story. The 29-year-old convicted offender of the prurient acts relating to children had been arrested after allegedly killing a 15-year-old girl he was dating and then tossed her body into a dumpster behind his home. So apparently, let's let the convicted prurient offender for the children on probation. That sounds good. And wow, just mere weeks later, he did it again. So now he's being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. I wonder if he gets probation for that. I honestly, at this point, don't know. In addition to the murder charges, he's also being charged with 2 counts of obstruction of justice and 1 count each of aggravated prurient criminal abuse, concealment of a homicide, aggravated battery, unlawful restraint, otherwise known as kidnapping, and unlawful communication by a prurient offender. According to the press release from the police department, officers on the evening of May 6th received a call regarding a 15-year-old girl, later identified as Sasso Cleveland, who had not been seen or heard by her family since May 4th. So apparently missing for 2 days, and a little bit concerning about that. Police say Sasso Cleveland phone records indicate on the 4th she had been at an address that is the same address as the prurient offender's address. So according to her cell phone records, she had been at the address of the prurient offender. So, maybe the police would like to go ask him a question or two. The registration states that the individual was previously convicted of 1 count of abuse for a 14-year-old and possession of photographs relating to children in a prurient manner that depicted a person under the age of 13. So he's in possession of the images. He is engaging in criminal abuse of a child. How about probation? How about probation? The courts said. For this guy. Wow. Investigators with the department said they were able to locate the body of the 15-year-old, because no one could possibly see that coming, inside a dumpster that was located on the property next to his residence. That's kind of a clue. The cell phone records seem to indicate the 15-year-old was last at this address with the prurient offender, that they're registered at that place. We can't help noticing the child's body is in a dumpster next to the building. I wonder who could be responsible. How will we ever figure it out? After obtaining and executing search warrants, they said they obtained evidence, which, yeah. And then he was charged with murder because, yeah. At the time of the arrest, he was on probation for the assault of the 14-year-old child. He had pled guilty, was sentenced to probation, and registered as an offender. Great. The investigation revealed that he had been, at least in what he called, a dating relationship with the 15-year-old. So we're dating the 15-year-old. That seems problematic on a number of levels. According to the release, the individuals got into some kind of argument when the convicted offender held her down, and suffocated her with a pillow. So they apparently had, I guess we'll call a domestic argument somehow for the 15-year-old. And we decided to solve it with a pillow. He then apparently brought her body outside and tossed her into a dumpster behind his building. After discarding remains, investigators said that they removed all the personal items from his apartment and threw her phone away in a garbage at another location. The coroner's office determined, death by homicide from the asphyxiation. The sheriff's office said that he's a predator. No. Sought out an innocent 15-year-old girl and snuffed his life out. The chief of police said that they were upset about the circumstances. I would be kind of upset too. Amazingly, the probation scared straight plan didn't seem to work. It angers me because I think we could have saved this young lady. Well, if you had put him in prison for the previous abuse and the possession of the photos of a different child, that would have been helpful. But apparently, no. Apparently, we like the probation for the child offenders. That seems like the thing to do. A GoFundMe page to help with costs has been set up by the Fens. The page stated that prior to the death, the girl had found out that he was a sex offender. So apparently that was the nature of the argument. Apparently, the 29-year-old secret became exposed to the 15-year-old, and they got into an argument, and how about a pillow? So, great. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story of Timothy Dahl, and unfortunately, the end of the life of Gracie Sasso Cleveland. Gracie Sasso Cleveland was a 15-year-old girl. Timothy Dahl was a 29-year-old convicted offender relating to the Prurient Acts for a 14-year-old, and also convicted of possession of photographs of a prurient nature of an under 13-year-old. He was convicted. Despite this, they said, how about probation for you, sir? This isn't that big a deal. How about probation? And you just register your office and stuff, and that'll be great. And who could have possibly see it coming? He then murdered a 15-year-old girl. Unclear whether or not he's going to get bond or bail. I don't know. What is the bail for the murder of the 15-year-old after the CP possession and the SA conviction? Is that like a $10,000 bond or $20,000 bond? How does that work in this community? Unclear in Illinois. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story.